All right, what's up, everybody? This is Ghost Pepper, and we are back with another episode of ATG with Ghost Pepper. Today, we're going to be talking about the new Texas legislation that is fixing to pass both the House and the Senate. It is HB 1927, the constitutional carry bill. Just yesterday, on May, 21st, the Texas House and Senate members were able to come to an agreement on the language of the bill. And now all it's got to do is go back to both the House and the Senate. They got to give their yays or nays, and then we'll proceed to either Greg Abbott's desk or it'll die. More than likely, it's going to go to his desk and it's going to pass. He's already told everybody that if it does reach his desk, that he will go ahead and pass the legislation and sign it into law. So basically, what it's going to do is it's going to allow anybody who is age 21 or older and can legally possess a firearm, state and federally, to be allowed to either carry a handgun, concealed or open, out in public. So, yeah, this is great news for Texas. I mean, Texas will be, I believe, the 21st state to legalize some form of constitutional carry. We're a little bit behind everybody else. You know, Texas being the gun-ho state that it is, you would think that Texas would have been a little bit more ahead in this kind of legislation, but you know, we got there eventually, and so now all we got to do is wait for the Senate and the House to come back and say that yeah, we're going to go ahead and approve this, or if God forbid they say that they don't want to approve it, then we got to start hashing out. You know, maybe there were some other things that if we change the language or this and that, we'll be able to get it passed. But looking right now, it looks like it has good odds. Basically, what happened was the House, they voted on it back in April to basically pass, and then it went to the Senate. And at the Senate, they added a few amendments. I believe they added 8 amendments to it. And then when that happens, when they start changing the language and adding amendments to the bill and everything like that, then it's got to go back to the House for approval. And then when it got there, they didn't like it had something to do with the language in it. They didn't like it. And so they sent it to a special committee to try to hash out everything between the Senate and the House on how they wanted the bill written. And so, yeah, on Friday, May 21st, they came to an agreement. So now they're going to send it back. And I know that I think some of the issues were with like the wording and having it, they're going to add stricter penalties for people who are caught with guns that shouldn't have guns. So say if you're a convicted felon and you're not legally supposed to have or own a gun and you're caught out in public carrying your gun, there'll be stricter limits or stricter punishments for people. I think one of them also it had to do with the language of how they were gonna have the Texas Department of Public Safety basically have a training video online for anybody who wants to take it, basically a free class on firearm safety and stuff like that. And there were just like a few things like that they added to it that they weren't quite agreeing on. So let's see, what else do we have at the time? And this is another article. At the time, violent crime is increasing in Texas and trying to meet challenges related to mass attacks in public places. Okay, so to everybody who's kind of like against or on the fence of people owning and be able to carry their firearms, basically all this bill is doing is getting rid of the need for a permit. It doesn't stop, the laws that we already have in place, or it doesn't expand the laws that we already have in place for people that aren't supposed to have firearms already. If you're not supposed to have a firearm, you're not going to be able to be allowed to carry your firearm. All it's doing is allowing law-abiding citizens that are able to legally purchase and own guns to be able to carry those guns out in public. To everybody that's saying, oh yeah, this is going to create more violence or whatnot, these people, they got to understand, right here it's talking about violent crimes increasing. The majority of these mass shootings that are occurring in different states, they're happening in gun-free zones. That's the majority of what's happening. It's areas where people are not allowed to carry their guns already by law. So you're talking about like churches and synagogues, federal buildings, schools, all these places that are already set up to be gun-free zones. Criminals don't care. Criminals do not care if it's a gun-free zone. They don't care if it's illegally able to be carried in a zone. Like, you got to think about it, that criminals that are committing these crimes are just that. They're criminals. So they really don't care if they're going to break another law by carrying a gun into a school or anything like that. So I feel, personally, my belief is that we should make more areas able to be carrying your guns into. I think that the more people that have their guns out in public, the more of a deterrent it is for criminals to commit these crimes. Because, I mean, a criminal is always going to think on some sort of spectrum, what are the ramifications for what I'm about to do? If they know that they're not going to get shot when they're committing this crime, then they're going to be more likely to be like, oh yeah, I'll go do this. I'm going to go rob this person, or I'm going to go, assault this person, or, whatever it is, because there's less fear of that person that they're committing the crime against to turn around and shoot them or turn around and defend themselves in whatever way. So you got to remember that, yes, more people are going to be carrying their guns, but that also means that people are going to be thinking about a little bit more what actions they're doing. And yeah, you're always going to get some bad people that do bad things, but in this country, we have a Second Amendment for a reason, and that's for the right to defend ourselves. And when the government starts coming in and putting stipulations on this and that, then, it leaves the American people defenseless. Going into a little bit, I'm not going to get super into the whole voter ID and everything like that, but when you hear these Democrats saying that, voter ID is racist, majority of the time what they point to is the fact that, or it's not even a fact, they point to the minority communities being less able to access and obtain an ID. It's not the case at all. Everybody that I talk to that is of a minority group think that voter ID should be used. But on the whole side of the permit for carrying your gun, if you move that argument over from voter ID and being able to afford it and being able to obtain it and everything like that, it's way harder and way more expensive to go out and get your concealed carry permit or your open carry permit in Texas than it is to go get an ID. So when you're doing that, are you also racist for, not letting the minority communities be able to obtain their guns that they already, may own legally and be able to carry those out in public because, by your logic, not mine, I don't believe this, but by your logic, they cannot go out and they cannot afford it. They cannot go out, they can't obtain it because, it costs money and everything like that. So it's the same thing. All Texas is doing is saying, hey, every Texan should be allowed to use their gun or be allowed to carry their gun and defend themselves if need be. That's all this law is, or this legislation is. And it's about time that they added this legislation to Texas. I was gonna say something. Now, where was I at? Hmm. Dude, oh, so with this legislation too, though, it doesn't make the permit, so you can still obtain your permit, your permit to carry in Texas, and if you have that, then there are several states that require permits that you will be able to then carry your gun from Texas into those different states. If you do not have your permit, you will not be able to just carry your gun into whichever state, you know, whenever, wherever, you know, however it goes. The law applies to Texas, but it will also apply to the 20 other states where they also have some form of constitutional carry. So in those 21 states, you will be able to carry your firearm with you to some degree. Some of them it's only concealed, some of them it's only open carry. Some of them are dual. Texas will be a dual. So it'll be, you can either choose to conceal carry or choose to open carry your firearm. So, you know, with that said, you know, I really don't see, you know, what the downside to this is. I know a lot of sheriffs are saying, well, you know, it's going to be harder to identify who should and should not have a gun. Really, it's none of their business. I mean, if you see a person carrying a gun, you shouldn't be stopping that person just because they're carrying a gun. Bottom line. I mean, unless they have reasonable doubt to suspect that that person is about to commit, has committed, or is planning to commit a crime, they should not be concerned with whether or not that citizen is carrying a gun on their hip or concealed. Point blank. And if you're a cop out there and you're going up and just willy-nilly, you see somebody carrying a firearm, stopping them and asking them questions about it, you know, shame on you. You know, we live in America. You know, we have a Second Amendment right to carry our firearms with us and to protect ourselves. And shame on you for suspecting somebody or discriminating against somebody just for using their God-given freedom to defend themselves. So that's pretty much all I have to say on the matter. We'll kind of see next week, and if they do pass it, I'll come back with a little update and be like, hey, yeah, they passed it. Or, you know, if they don't pass it for some odd reason, you know, I'll say, oh, yeah, we'll still have a lot of strides to go. But, you know, whichever way this goes, you know, I really hope in favor that they're gonna pass this. If for some reason they don't, you know, I still think people should go out and look into purchasing a firearm for themselves, for their home. Look into getting a concealed carry permit. It's not for everybody, but like I said, just make a personal risk assessment. And it shouldn't be the government's decision to tell us whether or not we can defend ourselves if the need arises. That's basically point blank. It should never fall to the government. I mean, the government's supposed to be in place to protect our liberties and to enforce our freedoms. It shouldn't be there to block anything. And unfortunately, in the climate that we are, a lot of the government is trying to move in and push stupid legislation to restrict the American people's freedoms. And we just got to try to fight back, and not in a violence way, but we gotta use our power of voting. We gotta use our power of you know, talking to your neighbor, talking to each other about, you know, the different things that are going on, and just try to educate people. If y'all do have any questions, go ahead, drop them in the comments below. I'll be answering any comments that y'all post. If y'all have a question and I don't know the answer to, I will try to find out the answer for that. And, you know, just continue, like, share, keep the support coming, y'all, because we really do appreciate it. And we'll catch you in the next video. Hasta.